Cooking and eating ancient Rome was nothing like today, yet they still hosted lavish feasts and preserved food in the scorching heat without modern kitchens. Their methods were ingenious, bizarre, and totally unexpected. And the strangest part? You might be using one of their secrets in your own kitchen without even knowing it. Have you ever tried cooking without a stove or oven? I guess not. Romans' kitchens were basic, often just an open fire on a raised stone hearth, with iron tripods or gridirons holding up cooking pots. There were no thermometers, no timers, and no packaged seasonings, just fire, primitive tools, and a lot of trial and error. Can you believe it? One of their most commonly used vessels was the amphora, a two-handled container primarily used to store and transport essential ingredients like wine and olive oil. These massive pots weren't just casually placed on a counter. They were embedded in pits in the kitchen's earthen floor to keep them stable. When it was time to use the contents, wine and oil were poured from these huge containers into smaller jugs for easier handling at the table. Sounds inconvenient, right? But in a world without plastic or glass bottles, this was their best storage hack. Another crucial kitchen tool was the mortarium, a dish with a rough inside surface and a pouring lip designed for grinding and crushing food. Romans didn't have blenders or food processors, so everything from herbs to grains was painstakingly ground by hand. Imagine crushing garlic with a mortar and pestle. It takes effort, right? Now picture doing that for every single ingredient in every meal you make. And speaking of grains, a quernstone was an essential part of Roman kitchens, used for grinding corn into flour. Since bread was a staple of the Roman diet, most households either baked their own loaves in small clay ovens or bought them from local bakeries. Today, we grab a loaf from the supermarket without thinking twice. But back then, making bread was a workout. And their approach to food preservation, it was surprisingly sophisticated. Without refrigeration, they relied on fermentation, salting, drying, and pickling to keep food edible for longer periods. Fish sauce, known as garum, was one of their most prized seasonings, made by fermenting fish guts in the sun for weeks until it turned into a pungent liquid that they poured over everything. It sounds a bit unsettling by today's standards, but it was as common to them as ketchup or soy sauce is to us now. Believe it or not, similar fermented fish sauces are still used in parts of Asia today. Would you try it? The concept of street food was also alive and well in ancient Rome. Many people, especially the working class, didn't have proper kitchens at home, so they bought meals from street vendors or small restaurants called thermopolia. These were the ancient equivalent of fast food joints, serving hot dishes like stews, sausages, and bread. Archaeological digs in Pompeii have revealed remarkably well-preserved thermopolia with serving counters, storage jars, and even painted menus on the walls. Interestingly, the history of cooking goes way beyond Rome. Some scientists believe our early human ancestors started using fire to cook nearly 2 million years ago, long before Homo sapiens even existed. The earliest confirmed evidence of controlled cooking dates back around 780,000 years, when early humans in what is now Israel roasted fish over a fire. Over time, as civilizations advanced, cooking methods evolved, leading to the sophisticated culinary world of ancient Rome. But Roman kitchens, despite their ingenuity, were also dangerous. Open flames, hot oil, and no safety measures meant fires were a constant threat. Homes were often built close together, so one kitchen fire could easily turn into a full-blown disaster. Wealthier Romans had separate kitchens to keep the heat and smoke away from the main house, but for the average person, cooking was a risky daily task. Next time you grumble about a smoke alarm going off in your kitchen, remember that in ancient Rome, a small mistake could burn down an entire block. The legacy of Roman cooking is still seen today. Many of their methods, fermentation, preserving food with salt, communal dining, are still part of various cultures around the world. Even some of their recipes, like honey-glazed meats and herb-seasoned stews, wouldn't be too out of place on a modern dinner table. What's shocking is how much they accomplished without any of the conveniences we rely on today. They had no refrigeration, no precise cooking tools, and yet They created a food culture so rich and varied that it still fascinates us thousands of years later. But at the core of it, Roman feasts weren't just about food. They were about power, status, and proving just how much luxury you could afford. And if you think modern dinner parties can get competitive, Roman banquets took it to a whole new level. Roman banquet rooms were always filled with the warm glow of oil lamps, the scent of roasted meats and honeyed pastries drifting through the air. The wealthiest guests were stretched out on cushioned couches, reclining lazily as they picked at trays of exotic fruits, olives, and spiced wine. This wasn't just dinner. It was an event, a performance, and a statement of wealth all rolled into one. But wait, the shocking part is that not everyone gets to relax and eat like this. Reclining while dining was a privilege, mostly reserved for men of high status. Women, unless they were particularly wealthy or from a powerful family, had to sit upright, along with the lower-class guests who were lucky enough to be invited. It was a way of reinforcing hierarchy. Your posture at the table literally showed your place in society. Imagine going to a fancy dinner party today and being told, "Oh, sorry, only VIP guests get to use the comfy chairs. The rest of you, foldable metal seats in the corner." Yeah, not exactly the most welcoming vibe. Some banquets even turned into political networking events, where deals were made and alliances were formed over plates of roasted peacock and honey-glazed dormice. It's kind of like how modern business deals sometimes happen over expensive dinners. Except, instead of steak and wine, they were sealing agreements over flamingo tongues and fermented fish sauce. And let's talk about one of the biggest misconceptions about Roman feasting: the vomitorium. If you've ever heard that Romans had special rooms where they went to throw up between courses so they could keep eating, that's actually a myth. The term vomitorium originally referred to large exit passages in amphitheaters where crowds would vomit out of the building after a show. The idea of a dedicated puking room is just a misunderstanding that got exaggerated over time. That said, some wealthy Romans did take things to extreme levels. There are stories that some of them made themselves vomit during big feasts just so they could keep eating more. Imagine sitting at dinner while the wealthiest guests lie around on fancy couches, eating as much as they want, while everyone else sits properly. Sounds crazy, right? But is it really that different today? Think about it. Rich people still throw huge parties, spend thousands on fancy meals, and waste food, while many others struggle to afford basic groceries. The way it looks has changed, but the idea of the rich overindulging while others watch is still the same. But wait, let me tell you one more shocking secret. The Roman diet was as adventurous as it was practical. They ate fattened snails, dormice, pigeons, shellfish, and all kinds of game. Dormice, in particular, were considered a delicacy. These little rodents were fattened up in special jars before being roasted and served with honey and poppy seeds. Oysters were also incredibly popular, and the Romans even had special spoons with pointed handles designed specifically for eating them. Archaeologists have found numerous oyster spoons, which shows just how much the Romans indulged in seafood. Roman meals were structured around three main eating times. Breakfast was a simple meal of bread and fruit, while lunch, prandium, was a cold snack or something light like fish, eggs, and vegetables. The real feast took place at dinner, the largest meal of the day, featuring multiple courses that often ended with something sweet. Vegetables were a staple, usually cooked into stews. But despite their love for rich flavors, the Romans didn't have processed sugar. Instead, they relied on honey to satisfy their sweet tooth. Could you imagine life without sugar today? Cooking in Rome wasn't just about survival. It was a status symbol. Wealthy Romans held extravagant feasts where exotic dishes like flamingo tongues, peacock brains, and roasted swans were served. These meals were meant to impress guests and showcase the host's wealth and power. Some Roman emperors were so obsessed with rare and bizarre foods that they spent fortunes just to get them. Emperor Vitellius, for example, was known for his gluttony, and once ordered a dish containing the livers of parrotfish, the brains of pheasants, and flamingo tongues, all collected from different parts of the empire. Imagine hosting a dinner party and serving peacock brains. Safe to say, wouldn't go over well today. But while the rich indulged in such excesses, the average Roman diet was much simpler. Most people lived on grains, vegetables, and legumes, often in the form of porridge or bread. Meat was expensive, so it wasn't an everyday thing for common people. Instead, they relied on lentils, chickpeas, and other plant-based proteins. Even so, food was central to Roman life, and communal dining was a big deal. Eating alone was considered bad manners. Meals were meant to be shared. How different is that from today, where many of us eat in front of a screen rather than with family or friends? Back in ancient Rome, people ate in a way that might seem strange to us today. Instead of sitting at a table with chairs, they lay down on couches, relaxing as they enjoyed their meals. Forks weren't really a thing for eating. Romans mostly used their hands, picking up solid food with their fingers. They did have spoons for soups and stews, and knives were used to cut food, but not for eating like we do now. It might sound messy, but think about how we still eat burgers, fries, or pizza with our hands. Maybe the Romans weren't so different from us after all. Formal meals took place in a special dining room called a triclinium, where the arrangement in the dining room featured 3 couches positioned around a central table or tables, with each couch seating 3 people. This triple layout is what gave the triclinium its name. They would prop themselves up on their left elbows and eat with their right hands while servants brought them more food. It might have been comfortable, but can you imagine trying to eat spaghetti like that? Today, we sit at tables. But let's be honest. How many of us eat dinner on the couch while watching TV? Some people even snack in bed. Maybe the Romans were just ahead of their time. But for the Romans, food wasn't just about indulgence or comfort. It also played a deeper role in health, luck, and even personal strength. They believed certain foods could heal the body, boost energy, and even change their fate. Take garlic, for example. Today, we know it as an extra flavor to your meal, but the Romans took it to another level. They thought garlic could cure almost anything: diseases, weakness, even a broken spirit. Soldiers ate it before battle because they believed it made them stronger and braver. And if that wasn't enough, they also considered it an aphrodisiac, meaning they thought it could spice up their love life. Can you imagine thinking a garlic-heavy meal would make you more attractive? Not exactly a modern dating trick, right? And honey? Oh, it wasn't just a sweet treat. It was basically their version of neosporin. They used it to clean wounds and prevent infections, which actually worked since honey has natural antibacterial properties. But they also thought it had almost magical healing powers, and they used it in everything from medicine to beauty treatments. Even today, honey is still used in some natural remedies. Ever tried honey and lemon for a sore throat? The Romans were way ahead on that one. Then there was vinegar, which played a surprising role in Roman life. Soldiers drank a mix of vinegar and water called posca, not because they loved the taste, it was probably awful, but because they believed it kept them from getting sick and gave them energy. It was cheap, refreshing, and safer than drinking dirty water, so it became a staple for the Roman army. Today, people still swear by drinking vinegar for health benefits. Think apple cider, vinegar shots for digestion or weight loss. Maybe the Romans were onto something after all. But food wasn't just medicine, it was also full of meaning and superstitions. Some foods were considered lucky, while others were thought to bring bad fortune. Lentils, for example, were linked to wealth because they looked like little coins. Eating them was basically like hoping for a raise at work. Fast forward to today, and some cultures still eat certain foods for luck, like black-eyed peas on New Year's in the American South, or tossing coins into fountains for good fortune. On the flip side, some foods were seen as bad omens. Ever heard the superstition that spilling salt is unlucky? That actually comes from ancient Rome. If someone knocked over the salt at a meal, they believed it meant trouble was coming. To fix it, they had to throw a pinch of salt over their left shoulder to ward off bad luck, something people still do today. Even the order of food at a banquet had meaning. Eggs were often served first because they symbolized new beginnings, while nuts were saved for the end, representing a good finish. It's kind of like how we have birthday cakes to mark celebrations, or why people say cheers before drinking. The traditions might look different, but the idea of food holding deeper meaning hasn't changed much. It's crazy to think about how much of Roman food culture still lingers in little ways today. Do you know of any food superstitions in your culture? Let me know in the comments, because this is wild. But beyond all this, one of the most interesting historical stories about Roman food revolves around Apicius. Apicius is perhaps one of the most fascinating figures in the history of Roman cuisine, a true symbol of excess and indulgence. He lived during the reign of Emperor Tiberius, 14 to 37 AD, and became infamous for his unrelenting pursuit of the finest, rarest, and most extravagant foods. His name has been permanently linked to luxury dining, and his influence on gastronomy lasted for centuries. Unlike many Romans of his time who indulged in lavish feasts only occasionally, Apicius made extravagant dining his entire way of life. His obsession with gourmet food knew no limits. He was not just a wealthy epicure, but a man so devoted to fine dining that he was willing to travel across the empire in search of the most exquisite ingredients. According to ancient sources, Apicius once heard that shrimp from Libya were of exceptional quality, so he personally embarked on a journey there. However, upon arriving and finding that they were not up to his standards, he turned around and sailed home without even stepping off the ship. One of the most famous stories about Apicius highlights the extreme lengths he went to in pursuit of culinary perfection. He is said to have developed a method for fattening up live flamingos before cooking them. He also allegedly perfected the preparation of delicacies like roasted ostrich, honey-glazed dormice, and even stuffed sow's womb. In modern times, while people still chase after rare and exotic foods, the accessibility of gourmet ingredients has drastically changed. Instead of embarking on weeks-long journeys to find a specific delicacy, high-end restaurants now fly in fresh seafood and rare meats from around the world overnight. Culinary trends have shifted as well, with sustainability and ethical eating becoming significant concerns. Today, a dish featuring flamingo tongues would spark outrage rather than admiration, as conservation laws protect many of the animals that the Romans once feasted on without hesitation. The extravagance of Apicius's dining habits might still be echoed in Michelin-starred restaurants, but the approach to luxury dining is far more refined and globally conscious. Apicius's passion for fine dining eventually became his downfall. Despite his immense fortune, his reckless spending on luxurious feasts and rare ingredients drained his wealth. According to Roman historians, when he realized he only had 10 million sesterces left, he concluded that it was not enough to continue living in the lavish manner he was accustomed to. Rather than face a life without the finest foods, Apicius poisoned himself. The idea that he would rather die than eat like an ordinary Roman is both shocking and revealing about his character. His legacy, however, outlived him. Apicius's influence on Roman gastronomy is immortalized in the cookbook De Re Coquinaria, on the subject of cooking, which is attributed to him, though it was likely compiled after his death. This book is one of the oldest surviving collections of recipes from antiquity and provides a rare glimpse into the culinary world of ancient Rome. The cookbook contains over 400 recipes, covering everything from simple stews to complex dishes fit for a banquet. It also offers insight into Roman cooking techniques, seasonings, and food preservation methods. Many of the recipes in De Re Coquinaria reflect Apicius's extravagant tastes. The book includes dishes featuring exotic spices like saffron, imported from the East, as well as complex sauces made with fermented fish, honey, and wine. Some recipes call for unusual ingredients, such as dormice stuffed with minced pork, eggs, and herbs, or a dish made from roasted sow's udder. While some of these dishes seem bizarre to modern tastes, they showcase the incredible diversity of Roman cuisine and the lengths to which the wealthy elite went to impress their guests. Interestingly, the cookbook also contains practical advice on food storage and preservation, indicating that it was not solely intended for the ultra-rich. Techniques such as pickling, salting, and fermenting are discussed in detail, showing that even in a time without refrigeration, Romans had developed sophisticated methods for keeping food fresh. The book also provides seasoning tips, demonstrating how Romans used a blend of herbs and spices to enhance flavors, a practice still common in Mediterranean cuisine today. Apicius's cookbook also reveals that Roman cuisine was far more advanced than many assume. Despite the lack of modern technology, they had developed impressive skills for baking, roasting, boiling, and even thickening sauces with ingredients like flour or ground nuts. The use of sweet and savory combinations, a hallmark of Roman cuisine, is something still enjoyed today in many global food traditions. So, could you handle cooking the Roman way, or would you miss your microwave too much? Do let us know your views in the comments below. If you liked this video, hit the subscribe button and bell icon. Thanks for watching.